So today we're going to talk about the last character duel deck that I haven't talked about so far, and I've saved the best for last because obviously I don't think it is really a debate that Onomat is the best deck in the format, and for good reason. This deck pretty much does everything that you would expect a good deck would do. It's consistent because the skills such as anything that you're missing. It has really good extra deck monsters, and they have good effects on them. You know, Melvin, Sin, and M7 have good removals, and they have good going first options as well, with Force Focus being able to negate boss monsters against certain matchups where your opponent has a high level monster, and your Xyz monsters can also get really big. Like Excalibur can go up to 4k, and Utopia can get up to 5k when you use it with double or nothing, and that pretty much beats over any monster that your opponent has. So, you know, that combined with the removal makes this deck really, really strong going second. And when going first, you can either use the Force Focus if it's good against your opponent's deck, or the deck has also a lot of space for non-engine, and that can be used to set up a board going first that can stop your opponent from playing, or you can just do what I do and just play Howl the Life Barrier and just stall so that you can make use of the deck's really strong going second potential and just win on the next turn. And not only that, the no matter what kind of game plan you're going for, you know, no matter if you're going for back row hate strategy, you know, playing triple MST, triple lands, or you're going for a interruption build, you know, with Book of Moon or Fiendish Chain, no matter which path you choose, you can always play triple draw, which is a draw 2 inside the deck, and it really helps with the consistency with any sort of strategy that you're going with the deck, and that is what you know, makes the deck the best deck in the entire format. And the entire game plan of the deck is obviously to make these really strong Xyz monsters, but when you go first, you really have to rely on these non-engine, because otherwise you might just lose. The deck isn't exactly the best when going first when compared to other good decks like Blue Eyes. They have Azure Eyes, which has really strong protection, and you know, resonators can gain life points and just spam a whole bunch of defense position monsters that pretty much guarantees that they don't lose. You know, Onomats don't really have that luxury. All they could do is make a Utopia and hope for the best, and maybe have an M7 next to it for follow up. But that's pretty easy for some decks to just beat over. Like in the Onomat mirror match, you're really happy to go second because it's much easier to break an Onomat board than it is to survive with an Onomat board. And also, decks like Resonators can really get rid of your Xyz monsters without too much of a problem, and that is why you would want to have kind of a healthy amount of non-engine to make sure that you don't lose when you go first. But even if you go all in on going second, that can still work, because the deck is just good enough on its own anyway, and you will probably win more games than you lose anyway. So for the deck building decisions that I have made, I have removed a copy of Garga Coat. I also am only playing 2 of each of the Onomat monsters except for Go Go Glove, because this is a pretty good discard for your draw spell. So it is actually good to have this card in your hand, and even if you don't have the draw spell, you can just discard it with your Onomatopoeia that you get from your skill, because it needs a discard anyway, and the Go 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 Glove is one of the best discards that you have in your deck. And if you're missing any of the other Onomat monsters, you can just search them with your skill. So not really a big deal if you don't play multiple copies, because you can just add anything that you're missing anyway. And for the non-engine, we're playing the 2 MSTs that come with the deck, but we are also playing 2 Forbidden Lances, because Lance is just better in this deck than MST, because the deck in engine already can play through 1 interruption because of the Gargan Revenge being able to just get you back a body. So just having Forbidden Lands helps you to not, you know, guess where your opponent has their interruptions set. If they set three and two of them are MSTs and one of them is a Book of Moon, you don't have to guess which one is the Book of Moon when you have an MST in your hand, for example. You can just save a lands in your hand, and then when they use the Book of Moon, just chain the lands. And that's just a better value than having MST. And Forbidden, I mean, Hallowed Life Barrier is here for the reason that I talked about. The deck isn't that good going first, so this just helps us survive, even though the discard isn't really that good compared to like discard in Blue Eyes, for example. In that deck, you can just discard the White Stone and it's super good, but discard is just good enough to see play, I think, just because it helps you survive. And then this deck has such a strong going second potential that I think it is still a good idea to keep these Hallowed Life Barriers in your deck. We're playing one Revenge and one Gaga Bolt. You can just add either one of them depending on the situation. Both of them are searchable with Gaga Sister. And actually, usually you will want to add Revenge, and I see people do this a lot of the time. They add Gaga Bolt, and then on Resolution, I just activate my Book of Moon on their Gaga Sister, and then they end their turn. Because if they don't have any Gaga monsters on their field, and also if they already used their normal summon, they pretty much cannot do anything. So what you do in that situation is either you know, if you draw MST or Forbidden Lands, then you don't really have to worry about that. But if you don't, you always add Gaga Revenge, and you will always try to have Gaga monster in your graveyard by discarding either the Onomatopoeia or Gaga Code, using either your draw, which you can use it to discard the Onomatopoeia because it is treated as the monster, or you can just discard it with the search spell. So just either way, just find a way to put a Gaga monster in your graveyard so that if your opponent tries to interrupt your Gaga sister, you can still have follow-up by using your Gaga Revenge and just keep extending and keep making your Xyz monsters anyway. So that's pretty much the idea. You also want to add a second copy of Malevolent Sin because this deck spams a lot more rank 4s and rank 6s. You only make one rank 6 per turn because you can only make rank 6s by the once per turn effect of Gaga Sister. But you can spam 2 rank 4s or even 3 rank 4s if your hand is really good. And in that situation, if your opponent has a lot of monsters on their field, you will want more ways to get rid of their monsters to actually have enough damage to OTK. So having 2 spiders really helps with that. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the list. Let's actually look at some replays. Okay, first game we're playing against Neos. We're going second, which is where we want to be. This deck is a lot better going second than it is going first, but going first is still fine depending on the matchup. Some matchups just cannot beat the Utopia attack negate. Opponent is playing Neos. Of course, they are just going to activate Neos Fusion because that's like the only thing the deck does. And our deck has a pretty good matchup against Neos because our removal bypasses the protection of the Neos Fusion. And also, we literally have a card that says if your opponent, if anyone negates your attack, we can just attack a second time with double attack. So we don't even have to negate our own attack when our opponent literally has a card that negates our attack. We draw into an MST, which is super good. We can just immediately pop up for his back row, not even have to worry about it. We can then just summon all of our monsters. You can make M7, just gets rid of the fusion monster permanently. Even if you couldn't use M7 on the fusion, you could still use Malevolent Sin. Banishing it temporarily is still better than nothing. And we can just attack. Opponent will try to negate the attack. Of course, we have the double or nothing. And then we can just double our monster's attack and just attack full game. So yeah, that is basically the best case scenario that this deck can produce. Okay, game 2, we are playing against Dark Magician. This is a slightly worse matchup, even though we're going second, because we don't really have a good way to beat a heavy back row deck. We can force out the Dark Magical Circle early by using Gaga Sister to grab Gaga Bolt. That pretty much forces them to immediately use the navigation to banish our Gaga Sister. But after that, we really need a way to continue extending. And we can either achieve that by discarding a copy of the Onomatopoeia so that we can revive it back with the Gaga Revenge later. Or we could just have lands, that also works. We could use Bolt to force out the navigation. The navigation doesn't really do too much in this situation because we already used our lands on our sister, so that our opponent's magical circle won't be able to banish our monster. So basically he is forced to banish our back row, which is completely okay. We don't even need to use our revenge. We can continue comboing as usual, and we just win this turn anyway because we have enough gas in our deck to be able to get rid of 2 monsters plus OTK. So we're gonna make Malevolent Sin plus the M7. Malevolent Sin banish one of our opponent's monsters, M7 bounces the other one. We'll set one just in case, and then we can attack, and that is lethal. Okay, in our third replay, this time we are going first against Blue Eyes. And look at our hand. Forbidden Lands isn't exactly that good when we go first, but it does have applications with the attack reduction effect as well. And also, if our opponent tries to Book of Moon our Utopia, we can use our lands on our own Utopia so that it still remains face up, and we can use it to negate our opponent's attacks. We're gonna just normal summon the Gaga Sister to search and then summon the Coat. We can make Force Focus because we know our opponent is on Blue Eyes and their deck has level 5 or higher monsters that we can negate. We can use it to negate Blue Eyes Alternative, which stops them from popping our Utopia. Opponent will use their skill to add Poly to their hand, and then they're just gonna try to summon from deck. We'll let them. They summon the vanilla Blue Eyes, which is exactly what we want. We can just lower his attack, he crashes, and well, that is why Forbidden Lands is still good even if you go first. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Not too much to talk about other than this deck is the best deck in the game in this format. And yeah, if you wanna win consistently, just play this deck. Thanks for watching, goodbye.